office for a few years, and now he's actually just took a job with Priority Sports, an agency in Chicago. He's going to be eventually be an agent in the football ops department. And let's give him a big hand.
Just real quick, just to kind of recap kind of who I am and my background. Grew up here in the D.C. area, grew up here in PG County, went to high school at Gonzaga, undergrad, went to Clark Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was a business, I started out actually as an engineering major and realized I didn't want to take 3 semesters of physics. So I became a comp sci major and realized that while I could be a really good programmer, I hated computer programming. So basically, long story short, I ended up being a business major with a minor in computer science. I just told you I hated computer programming, so what did I end up doing upon graduation from Clark? I went to work for Accenture, an IT management consulting firm, as a computer programmer. During the technology boom, so made good money and hated what I was doing from a day-to-day perspective. And you know, the life lesson there was, you know, while making a lot of money is really nice and very important, and you know, it's really cool when you're 22 years old and you're traveling for business and you have corporate apartments and you have a really nice paycheck. You know, it really wasn't worth it to me, you know, in the days in between my paydays. And so what I learned was that you never take a job just for the money as much as you take a job really for something that you're passionate about. And I've always been really passionate about sports. Played football at Gonzaga, was always really into reading box scores, and you know, the back of the newspaper would have transactions. I was really into just looking at the transactions and just was really kind of a stat geek as it relates to sports. So when I was looking at kind of what my next opportunity or the next path I wanted to pursue after leaving technology, decided to go pursue my MBA. You know, growing up, you know, in a Big East market, for me to go to Seton Hall, I recognized that, okay, if I go to Seton Hall, I can get my MBA with a concentration in sport management. But more importantly, I can go to a Division I athletic program, because having gone to Clark Atlanta, they're a D2 school. So I didn't really get exposed to big-time collegiate athletics in undergrad. So Seton Hall, you know, afforded me the opportunity to work at a D1 athletic program in the Big East. And because I was always into statistics and transactions, you know, the thing that was natural for me was, let me go volunteer my time in the sports information office in the athletic department. So before I took one class at Seton Hall, when I went to go register for my classes, I went to the sports information office and said, look, I'm going to be a first-year graduate student starting in January, right in the middle of Big East basketball season, whether it's paid or unpaid, willing to, you know, help you guys out in any way possible. So I just wanted to get involved in the athletic department. And working in sports information in the Big East allows you a lot of opportunities to network with a lot of members of the media, so on and so forth. But for me, you know, not only was the networking important, but just to, you know, see how they do the PR aspect of a big-time athletic program. And so started at Seton Hall, and little did I know, the assistant SID at Seton Hall, who I worked directly with for my first semester at Seton Hall, his best friend from undergrad worked in the NFL league office and was looking for an intern. So, you know, he said, you know, J.I., send your resume over to him. Did that on a Friday. That following Monday, they called me. Basically had an over-the-phone interview with them. It was with the NFL Management Council. I'll tell you what the Management Council is in a second. I had no idea what the Management Council was, except for I knew that, you know, they administered the salary cap, and that was really it. But in that interview, just really highlighted my analytical skills, having worked in technology at Accenture, so on and so forth. Long story short, I got the internship. So the 2 years that I was in grad school, I worked for the NFL league office. I'd go to school, go to work, 9 to 5 in 49th and Park, Manhattan. So catch the train, lived in New Jersey, caught the train into the city, worked 9 to 5, caught the train back out to Jersey, went to school at night at Seton Hall. And quite honestly, while I have an MBA in sport management from Seton Hall, I probably learned more on my day-to-day in the NFL league office than I did at night working on my MBA, because I got to build relationships with salary cap guys all across the league. And so the thing about this business, and it's no different than any other industry, but it's definitely important in this industry because it's so small and it's really hard to get into, is building that network of people in the industry. Internship ended in the Management Council, and I didn't have a job waiting for me in the NFL. You know, as much as I would email Eric at the Redskins saying I'm from the D.C. area, I, you know, have worked in the Management Council for 2 years, there wasn't an opportunity at the time. So I got an opportunity to work with the Eagles for a few months. doing HR stuff for them, but also doing salary cap stuff for them. And that was a great experience. It's a little weird, me growing up here. I'm a Redskins fan, working, for the Eagles. Little different. But that was the summer of the whole Terrell Owens, Donovan McNabb fallout. So it was an interesting training camp. Did that for a few months and ultimately came back here to the D.C. area and took a job not even in sports. I was doing business development for an architecture firm. But what I did was, through, again, one of my contacts at Seton Hall in sports information, his buddy worked in PR for the Wizards. And so my goal was really just kind of keep my name out there in the sports industry. And just the more you can kind of keep yourself in the building, the more you can network, or the more you can try to find your next opportunity. So while I was working in architecture by day, I was working game nights for the Wizards and basically setting up the computers along the scorer's table, setting up the computers in the referee locker room, and did that for 2 seasons. And then leveraging my contacts in the NFL on Redskins game days, was working as a contractor for the NFL, whereby we were calculating playtime percentages, where basically at the end of the game we figure out, okay, Santana Moss played in 90% of the offensive snaps in today's game, and then you accumulate those statistics over the course of the year, and it's actually those playtime statistics that actually end up paying a lot of incentives the way we structure contracts in the NFL. 2 years later, in 2007, as I mentioned, Mark Levin at the Union called me, said Eric at the Redskins was looking for somebody, and long story short, I got the job at the Redskins to be the salary cap analyst at the Redskins. I was there the 2007 and 2008 season. So when you think about 2007 with the Redskins, that ended up being Coach Gibbs' last year with the team. That's the year that Sean Taylor passed away. It's the year we drafted LeBron Landry. We extended the contract of Chris Cooley, making him one of the highest paid tight ends in the game. And as I mentioned, we went to the playoffs at the end of that year and lost to Seattle. Second season there, think back to the 2008 year. That's the year we had 3 second-round draft picks that we used on Devin Thomas, Fred Davis, and Malcolm Kelly. I'm sure you all have your opinions on how that second round has worked out for us. So did that for 2 years. Awesome experience. It's one thing to work in the league office and administer the salary cap, but it's another thing to work in a team, because when you work on the team side of the business, you have Sundays, and Sundays is when you get to see how your hard work compares to that of another organization. Left the Skins in January of 2009, and quite frankly, I got laid off from the Redskins. So, a lot of people would say, wow, that had to be crushing. That's your hometown team. You're helping negotiate contracts for the team you grew up following. And the day it happened, it was devastating. But, what I understood, or the way I looked at it was, when you look at, head coaches get fired all the time. General managers get fired all the time. Hell, in our 2 years at the Redskins, we cut a lot of kids, a lot of 21, 22, 23-year-old kids whose dream was to play in the NFL. But when you look at head coaches who get fired, a lot of times what do you see them end up doing? They go to work in the media. And why they do that is because, one, they have a very unique perspective because they're a head coach of an NFL team in a lot of instances. Keeps their name out there so that when an owner or a general manager is looking for their next head coach, they're prominently in the mind of that decision maker because they see them on the NFL Network, they see them on ESPN. So taking a cue from that approach, I'm like, well, look, when I watch John Clayton or Adam Schefter or Jason Lockenford, who's actually a good friend of mine, on television, those guys have never negotiated a contract in their life, and yet they're up here reporting that Sam Bradford got a $50 million guarantee, or X player just signed an extension worth $12 million per year. They're just simply regurgitating what somebody has told them, whether it's somebody on the team side or somebody on the agent side. What I looked at was, I can actually provide the same information from an unbiased perspective. So I started a blog, and I still had access to player contracts, so I could take a look at, if we're going into the 2009 season, who's going to be a potential free agent and what their market value is going to be. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade for Kellen Winslow and then subsequently sign him to an extended contract, I can see those contract details and then break it down and tell you how that contract compares to what Dallas Clark got on his extension and any other elite tight ends, or Chris Cooley, whose contract I helped do. Andrew and I are the only people in the media world who are former salary cap guys and have actually done it on add a team and actually negotiate these contracts. That's kind of where I am today. Again, ESPN 980 front office insider, and soon to be agent for Priority Sports and Entertainment.